Please go ahead, sir. We are live now.
Welcome you all on this occasion. ASSOCHAM has started like a series of masterclass roundtable discussions on various topics concerning. This is the second in the six-part series. The next will be on marketing and market excellence on 28th July. Before we start, some basic hygiene rules. I request you to please keep off your mic when not speaking. Questions are in the chat box, and I would request you to please keep the video on. Can I now request the chairperson of the ASSOCHAM Startup Council, Mr. Rohit Bhayana, to please deliver his welcome address. Over to you, Chairman, sir.
Thanks, Varun. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rohit Bhayana. I'm the chair of the Startup Council, and I, along with Neelam, my co-chair, welcome you to this session today. As Varun was saying, this is the second startup roundtable we are doing in this season. And we did this after a session we did, a feedback session we did with startups sometime mid-May. That session was with a fairly large cross-section of startups where we wanted to poll them and get a first-hand view, first-hand feel of what were the top-of-the-mind issues that most of the startups were looking at and that we as a group should be addressing in this season of Startup Roundtable. So the first one was funding, which we did sometime early this month. This is the second one, mentoring. The third one, as Varun was saying, was around go-to-market and POCs. The fourth one we're looking at doing on government programs, and we heard a lot about that in the last roundtable. Just taking a step back and talking a bit more from my perspective as we kick off today's session. I'm one of the co-founders and managing partners of Loomis Partners. We are an operating investment company. Over the years, we have seen, we work and invest with players and startups at various stages. We work with some very early stage startups. We work with some very late stage startups. So we are fairly stage agnostic. And one deep insight I've come to form over the years is that we all talk about this valley of death, the top funnel being the mouth of the funnel of startups starting their journey being very wide. And as they go through it, a lot of them perishing, a lot of them languishing, and about making it through. And by and large, the big perspective is capital has a big role to play in that. How many of them will get funded and how many will make it through with that? What we miss is that, or usually miss is that, a very big part of that is attributed to capital only as an output factor. There's several input factors that go in, which startups end up missing and addressing. And that is from innovation and intellectual property to how they go to market, how they license, how they do talent acquisition, and the list goes on and on and on. And this is where mentoring and incubation really comes in. This is where it really comes in. I'm sure as cliched in today's time, mentoring and incubation has become, I'm sure everyone on this panel and beyond has seen several breakout successes, which can be solely attributed to some great interventions. And today, as I open this up, I'm looking forward to this amazing set of panelists that we have. I'm looking forward to a very engaging session with questions coming in from the participants. I really think forward, we're going to have some amazing best practices spring up, which we can be sharing with all of you. And with that, I urge us to get the session started. Over to you, Ravi. Ravi will be our moderator for the day today, and thanks, Ravi, for making it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, sir. The moderator for today, actually Ravi Gururaj, who is the founder CEO of QuickPod. Mr. Ravi Gururaj is building a nationwide network of parcel delivery rockers in partnership with the top tier investors and strategic industry partners. Ravi ji is an entrepreneur, founder of 6 technology ventures, 2 of which are acquired by NASDAQ companies, an angel investor, and a mentor to numerous entrepreneurs, technology executives, and an ecosystem evangelist. Over his 26 years, Ravi has held wide range of roles, including promoting STPI, product management at Intel, served as a managing director of Trilogy Software Engineering Center, and founded multiple software product ventures. Over to you, Ravi ji.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Rohit, for just kicked off here, and I think sharing some of the learnings from the earlier roundtable. We look forward to this session, and we're going to focus, as you said, Rohit, specifically on mentorship, how you can build a very effective mentoring system, what mentees have to do to leverage the mentoring network and the opportunity they have wherever they are to the maximum, and what mentors should do to be most effective. I think we've got a really stellar set of speakers. And what we'll do, the format for today will be, I'll ask each of our panelists to give us their initial thoughts, opening comments. Please keep it to about 2 to 3 minutes, 4 minutes max, because we have a very rich panel. And most for your initial comments, quickly get to a very vibrant discussion. I encourage the audience, as was said earlier, please start posting all your questions in the chat box, and we'll get to those as we get to the discussion part of this this session. So I think just a few comments from me before we start. I think mentoring can be the secret sauce, right, in the ecosystem many a time, because if you can get the right person to be a bouncing board at times of need or times of opportunity, they can be people who help you connect with the right capital, the right hire, maybe a customer. So there are so many ways in which mentors can help. Sometimes it's almost to tell you what not to do. Even if they don't help connect you to somebody, even if they don't help maybe give you a strategic plan to go forward, but maybe they can tell you, very candidly, this is not coming out right, or that doesn't feel right. Sometimes, mentors can even help you with just literally refining your pitch. So mentoring comes in all shapes and forms in my mind, okay? And across the board. And I think, you can have both ephemeral relationships in mentoring and long sustained ones that turn into deep, long-term, beyond just mentoring relationships. And we'll talk about some of that as well. So, I'd like to, we have, like I said earlier, a very rich panel of participants this afternoon, speakers who are running, really a whole gamut of organizations across the spectrum that are helping young entrepreneurs, young startup companies get off the ground and get to kind of exit velocity. So I'd like to invite Shri Chinta Bakshi, who is the partner at CIIE and also the chief executive of Startup Oasis. I think Mr. Bakshi is in the car, and I hope we'll be able to hear from him clearly. But welcome, Mr. Bakshi, and we look forward to your opening comments.
Thank you, Ravi. Just a quick check. Am I audible?
Yes, you are very much. Thank you.
Oh, great. So I'm taking the call from the car. So in case I get dropped off, apologies for that. So yeah, very good afternoon. I think a very topical subject. I'll just, I have a lot of thoughts and experiences because we have been doing incubation for many years now. But just a couple of initial level thoughts given the 2-3 minute sort of time limit. So I think mentoring is obviously very, very important. It's one of the key things that an incubation center or an incubation process comprises, but it's not the end all. Right? I mean, I have seen incubators put too much stress on mentoring as an end in itself, as a magic potion. In my thought and experience, mentoring is one of the inputs of an incubation process, which the incubation center or whichever is the organization which is supporting the startup needs to design. Mentoring can come in, as Ravi, you rightly said, in terms of figuring out what not to do, in terms of helping a startup develop a pitch. So it has to be very specific interventions that the incubation manager or the organization needs to figure out and then plug in mentors. I mean, the mistake that a lot of incubation centers do is that they assign a mentor to a startup and hope that the magic happens. That doesn't work in my understanding. So the important part, really what I'm trying to say is that the incubation manager needs to figure out a process, and I think there are enough experiences that we have over the years as to what's the kind of process that works for a startup. So whether you call it a lean startup, whether you call it agile, design thinking. So it really needs to be a lean process. You need to figure out what are the key risks and then get in mentors and specific mentors to solve specific problems. I think the second point, which I'll quickly make and then I'll hand it over, is that, what we've also seen is that in a lot of interventions, some cases there's an individual mentor that is useful. In some cases, there are mentoring panels which are more useful. When you want a 360-degree sort of a feedback, right? You may want a startup mentor, you may want someone with domain expertise, you may want someone who has an investor lens, all coming together and and sort of over the next 1.5, 2 hours, working with the startup and trying to help the startup figure out what are the important risks and what's important next. So fundamentally, I think what I'm really trying to say is that mentoring needs to come in with a very pointed intervention. And broadly, it really needs to be focused on identifying risks and figuring out what's the other thing which needs to, what's the next thing which needs to be done, rather than creating a sort of a magic potion strategy all at once. Yeah, I think I'll just pause with that. The time.
Thank you, Mr. Bakshi. Those are very insightful comments there, I think, especially coming from somebody who's been kind of helping startups at scale. I think, process-driven, kind of framework-driven, matching the needs of the startup with a specific mentor rather than fixed assignment is excellent guidance. So, we'll come back to many of the points you've raised because I think those are very useful discussion points as well and for us to learn. Our next speaker is Shri Vijay Kumar Srivastav. He's the chairman of the Indian Academy of Entrepreneurship. Welcome, Mr. Srivastav. I hope you've been able to get connected as a attendee now.
Sir, there is some issue with him, so we can proceed to the next speaker. And meanwhile he is connecting.
Okay, please fix his connection, and then we'll come back to Mr. Srivastav next. So I'll move forward to Varth Krishna, who is the CEO of the GAIN Accelerator. It's a relatively new accelerator that Varth runs, and he is relatively new to the job himself, but comes with both operating experience and experience on the other side of the fence as well. So welcome, Krishna, and please give us some opening thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank ASSOCHAM for inviting me for this particular panel discussion. And Ravi, thanks for this opportunity. So let me give you the quick background, right? First, I was an executive, then turned into an entrepreneur. Been through a few exits, including a couple of IPOs. And now, as you rightly said, I'm also someone who's running the accelerator at the GAIN, which is not, I would say, very old. It's about 4 years old now, and we have been bringing startups from elsewhere in the world to India to access the Indian market, and the other way around, to take Indian startups to global markets. So we've been running many programs as a not-for-profit accelerator funded by MeitY, and there are other programs on the anvil. As I speak with you, this particular topic, from a point of view of an entrepreneur, I can say that I've been through these experiences, and some of it I shared with you, through an email. So I would like to quickly recollect some of them as that, yes, to what Chintan said, this is something which is, we have to plan very well and do it, monitor it very well. And more importantly, I would say that we need to also have certain, I would call like a structure, when this mentoring process starts with the entrepreneur. And, this accelerator or the incubator should play the role of monitoring this. And so originally, if you see, it is one, doing to many, like say, I'm a mentor, I do it to many startups. And then at the end, what happens, it is like many doing to one, so many, I would call mentors doing for one particular startup. So these are the ways now I have seen that the whole program evolves and the entrepreneur benefits from the various experiences that these mentors bring across the board. Then the other point which I had raised is also about at what point the entrepreneur begins to pay, or compensate. Because I've seen this elsewhere, for example, Techstars or Startup Bootcamp and so on. So they have a certain practice. I will talk about it later. So this is another important point. Many times entrepreneurs ask me that they had a meeting with this particular mentor, and the mentor is asking me to compensate him for his time. So this is another point which we need to discuss because many of the entrepreneurs have this question in their mind. The other point which I also brought up is to do with the conflict of interest, because many times the mentor is also at say competing startups, right, is mentoring. So then at what point, we say that, yes, you can only do this much, or, you cannot do another startup in the same domain. I mean, there has to be a kind of a regulation, in this. So I will stop here. We will come back to these points. Thank you so much.
Oh, very good. I think those are all interesting topics for us to discuss. I think, especially as mentoring scales out and mentors invest more time and mentees also expect more, and the relationship deepen. I think some of the issues you brought up definitely arise, right? And we can discuss that as well. Thank you, Bharat. Very, very insightful. Our next speaker, and maybe we can, is Mr. Srivastav available now?
Sir, can you please unmute Mr. Srivastav?
Good afternoon, Mr. Srivastav. Thank you for joining us. I think you're still on mute. Can you unmute yourself?
I think he's facing some technical glitch.
Mr. Srivastav, okay. Mr. Srivastav,
Mr. Srivastav, you're on mute.
Your video is coming through very clear.
Now I think you are on.
Okay.
Mr. Srivastav?
Yeah, Ravi, I can hear you. Very good afternoon to you.
Okay, very good, very good. So let me reintroduce you since it's been a little bit of a break here. So Shri Vijay Srivastav is the chairman of the Indian Academy of Entrepreneurship. Welcome, sir. And if you could share with us your initial thoughts, and we'll come back to a discussion. Hopefully your connection stays up solid for the next few minutes.
Thanks a lot, Ravi. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. Thanks a lot to ASSOCHAM, Neelam, Rohit, and all August panelists and the audience coming from all walks of life from different parts of the world. I'm Vijay Srivastava. I'm currently operating this International Academy of Entrepreneurship and Employability originating from UK. And we do have a chapter out here in India that is called Indian Academy of Entrepreneurship. Third one is going to come up in Nigeria, that is Academy of Entrepreneurship and Employability. And of course, we are on our expansion spree and have our plans to go all around the world to bring in best of the best startup talents and create a melting pot, international melting pot for the startup talents, mentors, investors, etc., etc. As of now, what we have done is close to 8 to 10 startups which are on the pipeline, and of course, we expect some of them to be unicorn in times to come. Therefore, we have been a little slow in terms of going to the market, all out going to the market and bringing everyone on board with us. However, now time has come in wherein, of course, the opportunity which is coming to us from all around the world, including ASSOCHAM, CIIs, and all the interest groups and principals of the country also. And even Government of India has started approaching us to get into collaboration to help our startups, startup talents, in all best possible ways to to the next level of creating this startup ecosystem, which is what we are talking about. I would just close my introduction by talking about two things. Our vision is nurture innovation, entrepreneurship and employability globally. And our mission is global mission, what we call global mission and movement is to enable human resources, people resources all around the world for a dignified livelihood solution, wealth creation on the foundations of entrepreneurship and employability, which goes together hand and glove kind of relationship through collaborative innovation and social technology. And of course, whatever we are doing all around the world is in line with Sustainable Development Goals of UN Charter 2015 to meet our Agenda 2030. Because our each and every startup, our funding, whatever we do, it has to be in line with Sustainable Development Goals. Not necessarily because we are one of the members of their cohort, but yes, we do have certain obligations to the global population, but the best experience in terms of by leaving no one behind on the earth. That's it, Ravi. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the opportunity. And I'm all open for any kind of question or the help which I can personally or on behalf of my institution, that is International Academy of Entrepreneurship, can extend it anybody around the world. And one more thing which I would just like to add on here, that we have some of our incubators and startups, startup talents from Africa. Most of them are from African countries. Some of them are from Europe as well. Now, of course, we are we are going to launch our Nigerian chapter, Africa chapter, and which is where, in fact, we are going to be exporting 2-3 startups, Indian startups, to Africa. And we are going to set up out there. There is some kind of technology transfer which is going to take place. And the spaces in which we are going to be doing this technology transfer is going to be edutech, healthcare, MSW, municipal solid waste management technology. And so these are the areas in which we are focusing basically. So
Right.
these external and international incubators and startups are very keen to come here in India. And that is where we have got our program called the Startup Talent Exchange Program, STEP. And they are willing to come here in India, exchange their experience, best practices, and learn from the startup ecosystem out here, okay, and join hands in terms of making an investment with the startups here. So that is something which can also we can explore this kind of opportunity through this platform that is also.
Very good.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you, Mr. Srivastava. I think we look forward to that perspective on both, importing and exporting startups globally, and especially the perspective of what's going on in the African continent, right? And how you're trying to build a mentor capability in that context, right? I think that will be very interesting. So thank you. Our next panelist is Shri Anupam Jalote. He is the CEO of iCreate, and iCreate stands for the International Center of Entrepreneurship and Technology. So welcome, Anupam. I hope you're online and can hear us all.
I definitely am.
Right.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Thank you, Ashocham, for having me here. And my apologies for the camera. There is some conflict of interest between Windows and Cisco, and therefore they refuse to work. But on the topic of incubators and mentors, I'd first like to speak briefly about incubators. So although iCreate is so much more than just an incubator, we work on converting tech innovation to successful enterprises. So therefore, we've got a whole bunch of technologies and projects working on technologies. Now, there are stages that each project goes through. First is a visible physical stage. In that, they progress from an idea to a POC, proof of concept, prototype, that starts to work and deliver, and then they go to market, early market traction, and then they grow. The other bit is that the journey that they are traversing in their minds. This maturation of the mind is independent of biological age. It's called a business maturation. It could be a person in their mid-40s, but when they come to their startup, they're as early in their business thinking as perhaps a person out of college. Now, as an institution, we see very, very deeply these two parallel rivers, the tech maturation and the business maturation and the entrepreneurial maturation. And we engage with a multitude of mentors, and we ourselves are subject matter experts and mentors. And the short comment that I wanted to make to get the discussion rolling is that mentors themselves need to be sensitive to the different levels at which the mentee resides, on the technical plane as well as on the business/entrepreneurial plane. And my guess is that mentors need to really be so much more aware and well read. Sometimes we bump into the mentorship issue that generic mentors end up giving very powerful, very good, but generic advice. But a startup is a very unique biochemistry of a certain promoter group, a certain set of product and commercial choices and market reality. And the advice that they need is extraordinarily specific if they are to have a small chance of success. And therefore, the thoughts there are that as projects mature, the needs from mentors change drastically, and the expectations from mentors change drastically. And therefore, mentors must also be very plugged in and sensitive to the maturation of startups. I think that's all I would like to say, or add a very brief comment about Ahmedabad, where iCreate is located, and we help all sorts of tech innovators become commercial successes. We have a gentle focus towards embedded systems, products, AI, and ML, and FinTech. And thanks. That's all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Anupam. Those were very insightful comments as well. I think, your reference to being very specific to stage and also contextual to the maturity of the entrepreneur are really insightful. I think we should come back to that for sure to discuss, especially the mental versus the physical model. I love that framing, of how it works. Thank you. Our next speaker is Sri Sanjeev Chopra, who is the CEO of Entrepreneur Park. Electropreneur Park. I have that wrong, I think. Please help me, Mr. Chopra, with the right pronunciation of that park, but it's a little bit of a tongue twister for me. But welcome, and I look forward to your comments.
Thank you, Ravi, and thanks ASSOCHAM for giving me this opportunity. I think Electropreneur Park. The idea is immediately it should give that message that it is about electronics. So
I get it.
we are incubation center actually funded by ministry. We started in April 2016. So it's been now a bit over 5 years, and we are focused only on electronics, and that's the reason. So as I believe Chintan also mentioned that incubation is not purely mentoring. So we have set up extensive lab facilities, primarily to cater to the electronic startup requirement, because their requirements are quite unique. They need equipment, a lot of test equipments, they need the physical space. It's very difficult for these startups to actually work virtually. So, that's what we have actually set up. And over the last 5 years, so that everyone knows about Electropreneur Parks, we incubated about 44 startups under different programs and put together, they have today valuation of more than 250 crore rupees, and very happy to say at least 75% of the startups incubated at Electropreneur Park either got external funding or today are in revenue stage. Put together, they are generating about 50 crore rupees of revenue. And I think it's the success come from a mix of services, whether it's the equipment, the specialized access to specialized technical people. We have a mentor pool of about 45 industry leaders. I think it's a combination of all the factors that today our startups are so successful. We also launched recently another Electropreneur Park at Bhubaneswar, where again we have already incubated 10 startups. So coming on to the topic of mentoring, so what we have done is actually we have structured our mentoring program very well. So what there is a clear understanding when a startup joins our program, then CEO is the first level of the mentor, which is me. And I have to, or I interact with the mentors on regular basis. It can be weekly in some cases. It is, maybe once a month or bi-monthly, depending on, the maturity level of the startup and the kind of support he needs, once we onboard the startups. So thereafter, then, once the startup is on board, we look at assigning a strategic mentor. Now, this strategic mentor, actually, what we assign is either a very successful entrepreneur or he is on the, one of the leaders at a very high position with a lot of experience, because we are expecting strategic guidance to come in from this mentor. So these could be, VP, directors, CEOs of some big companies, who help them not only give the strategic guidance, but maybe on the GTM refinements or the various other help they can give. So these mentors, we don't expect these mentors actually to play the role of giving connections to the startup, because a lot of startups, when we assign a mentor, so they look for that, okay, this mentor can give us connections, so it's become very important. So that again, we have a specific mentor, which is more like a master mentor, where every 3 months there is a meeting, and the master mentors are the ones who have a lot of connects in the industry. Now that's the forum where we identify that, okay, where does the startup need a connect? Now this master mentor would focus more on giving access to the startups, maybe some business connects or the various connects. And the startups really look forward to this, though it's a review, but they still look forward to this meeting, because while we are reviewing the progress, we are also giving startups, the various connects wherever the gaps are. Then, of course, we have a panel of subject matter experts. Now, there are a lot of technical experts for refining the pitching, for technical help, or maybe even for the marketing or the sales aspects. So that subject matter expert, we normally either invite them for conducting a session, in-house session for these startups, or we connect as and when required by the startup. Then we have a fifth category, which is a group of international mentors. Now, those mentors, we normally use their knowledge whenever we have a startup who is looking at a global market and new market, and he wants to explore. So this is how we go about mentoring. I think I'll leave it here, and then we go on to the interesting group discussions or the panel discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chopra. I like that 5 layers of mentors and kind of setting expectations, especially on the connect side, right? Because that's oftentimes the burden a mentor carries. So we can discuss that later, in terms of how you structure that. I think good learning there for others. So I'm going to go back to our 2 co-chairs, Rohit and Neelam, to ask them to make a few opening comments as well. Maybe Rohit, you can, since you've already gone, maybe I'll ask Neelam to first go, and then you can chip in as well. Okay. Neelam Dhawan is the co-chair of ASSOCHAM. Obviously, I think Neelam needs no introduction. She is an industry stalwart in many ways, and now a champion of the startup ecosystem as well in her new avatar here. So welcome, Neelam, and look forward to your comments.
Thank you, Ravi. It's really a pleasure to be here. And also thanks, Rohit, for this session. I think it's a very, very important topic. As executives, as we grew through our career, we saw ourselves being mentored and coached by various people in various stages we are of our career. The same holds true for startups. And as I look at it, from the starting stage to where how they mature, every stage they need different coaches and mentors to help them and guide them. I think one of the speakers very correctly mentioned that the startups look at, am I on the right technology? Am I really doing the right tech work which is required for what I want to achieve? And I find that very interesting. Maybe the questions come to me that because people think I'm from the IT world, so I'll give them advice on what is the great technology today for AI or data analytics or for automation. But the question first starts on technology, and I find that is always, it goes into a lot of discussion, thinking around, and I think mentoring requires you to think clearly. So I always keep telling my mentor, what do you want to achieve and what are you thinking you will be doing 3 years from now? And then let's talk about it. And what I find is people say, I want a mentor, but they're not clear on what they expect from the mentor, right? So we also have a duty to make them clear in their thinking and saying, what do you want to do? How do you want to achieve it? The second big thing, which I think mentoring is really, really needed for, is how do you build the organization? I think, we are in a hurry to say, I get the product, I get it to market, but nobody thinks about what will the sales team look like? What does the finance team look like? Do I need those many people? Do I need lesser people? We don't think about the organization. And that is one of the big reasons why many of the startups are not successful. So mentoring them is very important on that area. While I can talk about many more areas which is there, I think the trust which you need to have between the mentor and the mentee is so, so important. Without the trust, the mentee is not going to open up and the mentor is not able to give good advice. So the first is to build that trust, that I can trust this person to give me right, unbiased advice. I think people keep on thinking maybe he or she has a hidden agenda, whereas mentors normally don't have hidden agendas, and should not have. That trust building is very critical. And I'm going to stop on the last point. And I think the mentors, give suggestions which mentees may say, heard it, seen it, not going to accept it, so they don't have an open mind. You can never be successful if the mentee doesn't have an open mind. So to the startup CEOs, I always say, have an open mind. Let's discuss it. You may think it's a stupid idea. So be it, but let's discuss it and then discard it saying it is stupid, right? And having that open mind is very important as you go through the journey of the startup. So that's my opening remarks, Ravi. Back to you.
Thank you, Neelam. I think those are very insightful. You know, building the org, sometimes we put that way behind in the mentorship process. And you're right. I mean, the first seeds of who you hire to own certain functions can determine how that org turns out, right? And how you proceed and how scalable your organization is. And love the trust and especially the open-mindedness and being malleable of mindset, right? Very important if you're going to really effectively use your mentorship that you receive. Thank you. So I'll come back full circle to Rohit again to give us a few of his opening comments in addition to what he said earlier. And
Sure.
then get into a discussion.
Thanks, Ravi. I'm actually going to pick up on from where Neelam left, Ravi. So I think between, and this is coming to the point where Neelam was talking about, how one needs to keep an open mind. Just to complete the picture, I'll also talk about the polar opposite of that and I'm also wearing the hat of an investor and telling you how sometimes when I see a mentor-mentee relationship or an incubator-incubatee relationship, what worries me. And I think for the audience at large, that might also be somewhat useful. So what worries me is when mentors, in the typical Indian guru shishya thing, assume a very larger and a very general and a very broad aura in the minds of a founder. And a founder is or an entrepreneur is in the business with an idea, with a junoon, with a passion. And it's not that there's anything wrong with the way he or she chooses to execute it. The reason they need mentors is point in time or very specific domain-centric interventions. When those interventions become disproportionately broad or cut across segments and start getting general, the whole concept or the whole idea can really get twisted in a way which was never the intent to start with. And I've seen this many times. The founder started with a thought process that he or she was going to build a community, and that was what was going to drive in a freemium model adoption, and that was going to drive B2C converts. They'll finally go, perhaps at some stage, they'll go B2B. A mentor comes in and boo-ha-has all the way, and the idea changes from a community to a B2C to B2B to saying, oh, the cost of acquisition is going to be so challenging. Let's start with B2B. You've twisted the idea completely. Understood B2C is expensive, but you know what? You just twisted the idea completely. And for this entrepreneur, looking at the mentor, and the mentor has 25, 30 years of experience, this entrepreneur would typically give disproportionate importance to that. That would really worry me. That would really, really worry me. So my point here being, I think the virtues of mentorship and incubatorship are unparalleled. It's a very vital resource, but where they bring in those points of intervention and the domain depth with which they bring in is very vital. That was one. The other link to that was that mentor-mentee relationship, therefore, just building it from that, I feel it's very important that it doesn't have too much history and chemistry. And I usually say to the opposite in other things in life. History and chemistry are very important. I think here I worry about too much of history and chemistry because that lends a certain degree of deference that the mentee particularly will not cross the line. And that also again goes back to the Indian ethos. I think it's very important that it's a very platonic and a very dispassionate relationship. It has to have the ability to debate and push back and agree, disagree, go through rounds. So to me, that becomes very important. The third and the last thing, Ravi, I would say, therefore, is what's the skin for the mentor? What's the skin in the game for the mentor? And if there is no skin in the game for the mentor, and he or she is doing it from just being a well-wisher to being a neighbor to being, an ex-boss to being whatever, I would be very worried. I would love a situation where the mentor has as much skin in the game that when the zipper moves up or down, the skin is stuck both ways. It hurts both ways. I think that's broadly how I would just kind of complete everything else, which was very virtuous. I just want to complete that.
Thank you, Rohit. Those are very, again, very interesting thoughts you left us with. oftentimes I agree with you. Oftentimes I've seen pivot by advisor, right? Startups end up pivoting because the advisor has given them and overwhelmed them, right, with something. And so oftentimes it's something the advisor wished they could build, as opposed to what the startup founder wants to build, right? I think, so let's pick up on your last point, and I'd like you to start the discussion on this, of the model of what's skin in the game, right? So, what is the best way to structure that? Is it best for, let's say, mentors to be in a pool system where there's either a VC firm that has that maybe if it were a VC firm, let's say they had a pool of mentors, and then they have a way of compensating that group, right? And individual startups don't have to have a relationship and a contractual agreement, which is kind of inefficient. Similarly with accelerators, right? They impanel mentors and then assess them and have some kind of pool. Is that more efficient? Just posing to the question you raised, right? How to set that up? Because I think there's a structural problem, because the startup may think this mentor is right. How do they know this is the mentor they want to invest in? How does the mentor know this is the startup I want to stick with, right, for the rest of the time?
Yeah. Sure, Ravi. So Ravi, I'm going to differentiate between two kinds of intervention. I'm using that word often, two kinds of interventions. There is an intervention which comes with somebody with whom you've really worked for long, and you really are very sure why you need that person in. And as an entrepreneur, God bless you, because you're making a tenure-based decision there, and that's perfectly fine. But for what you asked me, and building on my thoughts further, I'm talking about what I'm calling the institutional mentors, which basically means you have gone and docked into some mothership. And as you dock into that mothership, what are the points of interventions that come from that mothership? So, and I'm using the word mothership, you can call it a platform, you can call it whatever. You can call it an incubator, you can call it an accelerator, you can call it whatever. I think the things we do, and then, just a quick 30 seconds about how we landed into also amongst investing, also building an accelerator. We call it a fellowship. We don't call it an accelerator. We call it a fellowship. But inside, the essence is that of an accelerator. Over 15 years, we were very deep in supply chain. We've been investing in building various businesses in supply chain, and amongst our portfolio companies, they manage 70 of Fortune 200 supply chains globally. This is from Argentina all the way to South Korea. So having been at it for such a long time, what we realized was when we saw Indian startups, and we were doing this outside India, when we saw Indian startups, we realized two simple things. One, we realized ideas, technologies were amazing. They were really amazing. And they're very unconstrained. But then the practical translation of that into commercial GTMs was very poor. Very poor. So if I put it in a abstract sense, if Indian ideation was A+, Indian commercial GTM was Z-. It was that extreme. And therefore, when we thought that we wanted to work with these startups, our immediate thought process was we can't work with them with a Z- on commercial GTM. We need to be very involved in the process. And if we're going to be operationally involved with it, we can't do it point in time, case in time, customized, unique. We'll have to generalize that a bit, and we'll have to bring in like a accelerator. We looked around and finally figured out how we're going to work with it. So we brought Project in, and Project as an example, Project throughout.
Right.
So we got Project in, and we created something called Supply Chain Labs. But the point, what I'm getting to is what we did there in Supply Chain Labs as an example is we said, okay, where all does commercial GTM fail? It fails on how are you going to, what kind of model are you choosing? Are you choosing a sell with a sell through? Are you doing white labeling, and at what stage? In white labeling, what happens is the IP going to sit with you? Is the IP going to sit with them? Is the IP going to sit in an escrow? Is it in a partnership model? Is it in an equity model? Is it in a commissioning model? And that was one example. Then we did the same thing in licensing. We did the same thing in talent acquisition. Is talent acquisition that you need a co-founder, you need a founding team, or you need just a world-class Drupal architect? So what do you really need? What are you really looking for? And then from there going into how, therefore, should you be structured? Should you be structured in India? Should you be structured in Singapore or wherever? So these were very specific point-in-time interventions. And the way we wanted to operationalize this was when you dock into the platform, your gaps are very visible. We do a few sessions. And after those sessions, hopefully, you have seen the as-is to the to-be. You're very clear with the as-is to the to-be. And that kind of defines a common buy-in between the two sides, that it makes sense to go there.
Great.
Also, the last point I want to bring out, also to kind of make it very simple for people, we chose to put companies in heterogeneous groups, not homogeneous groups. So when and I'm using the VC language, when I'm in a pre-Series A company, I'm also in my cohort seeing a Series B company so that I can imagine the steps ahead and it doesn't take too much of baptism to convert me. I can see an elder senior, I can see somebody who's ahead of me and what they're going through and what the challenges are. So we typically put them in heterogeneous cohorts, and that kind of creates a forcing function into absorbing the learning rather quickly. So just some few broad thoughts.
No, that's great. I think, that's almost peer mentoring you're trying to bring into play, right? As opposed to a senior or non-operational mentor, or at least non-operational in the context of the startup, right?
Correct.
Very good. So let me just bounce around a little bit across the group here. I think, Bharat, you had some issues on questions on compensation and conflict of interest. Just to pick up on the earlier thread so that we can discuss that out. Maybe you can explain what you meant and what conflicts you see, and don't just tell us the problem. Help us understand how you might solve it. That's key too.
Thank you so much. So you also know I'm a co-founder of the 100 Open Startups, which is founded in UC Berkeley in 2007, 14 years. It's the world's largest open innovation program. We created this program as a way for startups to be mentored by the various people in the ecosystem, right from domain experts. So we have various levels, level 1 to 5. So we made it like an automated way for people to be engaged with startups or founders. And the people, like I said, whether they are from domain experts in the level 1, then we have the corporate and the SME executives in level 2, investors in level 3, and then they get to meet in the what's called the OI week, where they sign contracts. So just to tell you, right, we have done 38,000 contracts in the last 6 years between about 3,500 startups and about 2,500 corporations, exceeding $2.3 billion. And they also went on to raise more than $1 billion in investments. So what I'm saying is that, yes, there is a system by which we could do it. But more importantly, right, I'm involved in another accelerator overseas where we created a system, which is very interesting, maybe something about compensation that you asked. So, what they call the institution that is running the program should identify, say, 30, 40 incubators. And these incubators are the ones which are going to feed into this particular accelerator. There could be experts, so it's like I would call like a network. So there are people from all over the world. Let's say somebody's in healthcare, somebody's in smart cities, somebody's in manufacturing, and so on. So you identify all those people and then empanel them. And then through a certain process, identify 30 to 40 that become mentor for this accelerator. And then the way we compensate them is very interesting. So what we did is let's say the startup is supposed to pay 6% for about 120K investments. Then that 6% is divided as 40% for the institution and 60% for the mentor. So then the mentor gets to say 4 or 5 startups over time, and that's it. So then once he or she reaches that, say, threshold of 5, then we look at other mentors that we can onboard. So just like made it very sector specific and very structured, and we see that working very well. And I see that is something which we can also imbibe here. And so that is one thing, right, about compensation. And then, of course, other thing I talked about is the conflict. So how do we avoid the conflict is, we always make sure that you have those interviews, let's say with the founder. So let us say that a few sessions have happened. Then you have those interviews with the founder to understand, what are their concerns, So you will be able to understand from their perspective whether a particular mentor is, doing things which are not okay for them. Then, you can have a counseling session with the mentor and then, find a way, to bring in another mentor for this particular founder, or, you can keep him away from this startup, right? So I'm just saying there is various interventions have to be done, and that's something the accelerator or the incubator has to lead the role and then guide it, So that's the best practices, as we call it.
Correct.
That's the way to do it.
But I think, those are issues that actually come up. Sometimes startups are worried if, you want a domain expert. Domain expert means this person might be an expert in batteries, let's say. Okay, I'm just using batteries as an example. But the problem is they're also talking to many startups that are trying to do new battery technologies and things like that. So when you go talk to them, how do you build those Chinese walls, right? In
Correct.
terms of avoiding conflict of interest or avoiding spillage of IP, all these things come up. I think Mr. Sanjeev Chopra also had an interesting point here. Sanjeev, you had raised the question of actually many relevant mentors are not able to mentor because their companies, they feel that there may be a conflict of interest in their company. So you don't actually get the experts to help you when you really need them, right? What can we do to solve that problem?
Yeah, so, especially we have experienced, when we approach some top management people and especially, the multinational companies or, very big companies. So they have apprehensions that, okay, they want to mentor the startup. They know they can contribute. There is no direct, the business of the company will not get affected. However, they are apprehensive that tomorrow they may be questioned that, there was a conflict of interest. So why did you take mentorship? So, here my suggestion was that, it's I think with the companies or the industry within India at least have to, come forward and encourage their top professionals to really mentor the startups. It could be in the policy. Maybe there is a system that they just declare that what startups they are mentoring. Maybe there is an encouraging platform. The other way around, what we have seen is that, in some cases, like we have tried to do a sort of MOU with the principal company itself, where we did a MOU and then we got a lot of mentors from that company because there was a MOU, there was an understanding that, okay, we will have various startups, coming from this company to have a lot of mentors coming from this company. So I think that was one way here which we could address earlier on this case. You're on mute, Ravi. Couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Apologies for that. And this may be, an area where an organization like ASSOCHAM could actually play a role, right, in terms of empaneling the mentors and helping create a framework which allows the large companies to contribute their expertise, right? Without and it might require a little bit of evangelism and a little bit of championing too, right, within those companies as well. So I think a huge opportunity to kind of make sure we get the right mentors into the mix. So I wanted to go back to Mr. Bakshi, and Mr. Bakshi, you mentioned that it's very important to have the right fit, right? Don't just assign right up front a mentor and then expect that to be useful throughout the phases. Can you help us think through that? What is the best way to do the matching? What is the best way to unmatch at the right time and rematch with the new mentor, right? Without any embarrassment either to the mentor or loss of kind of trust and relationship that Neelam also brought up, right? Among all these stakeholders.
I'm going to put my video on. Sorry. I'm not.
Yeah, we can see you well too.
I'm going to put. Yeah, let's see how long this is. But yeah, so I think to answer the question and mentoring, especially for an early stage startup, should not be the end all and be all. It's really a part of a larger process. It's really very pointed interventions. Your question was, of course, how to you are able to bring in and help exit mentors at the relevant point of time. And also links what Rohit was trying to say, very important points that needs mentors, different kind of mentoring inputs at different points of time. So I think how we have been able to do that is really that mentioned, we focus more on the process. And, a lot of our learnings and what we have seen work is really the lean startup method. For early stage startups, what is very important is validation, series of validations. Of course, we talked about mentoring to help a startup build organization, etc. That's also important, but perhaps that comes slightly in the later stages. In the early stages, a startup needs to do stuff and really learn from experiences which come from the ground, from customers, from being out there. Therefore, mentoring really needs to be focused on helping the startup understand what are the kind of prototypes, pilots, sprints that the startup needs to do. So therefore, you may need a different sort of a mentor to help startup figure out what needs to be done. Do I need to validate my customer segment? Do I need to validate my pricing? Do I need to validate my channel, etc.? So what we typically call as a diagnosis. So there's a process of mentoring which is really diagnosis. You're not looking at solutions. You're trying to help the startup figure out what are the biggest risks or the weakest links in your chain. So you need a different set of mentor for that. Once you have done that, now you need solutioning, right? Now you need to design a sprint. Now you need to design a prototype or an MVP or whatever. You may need a different set of mentors for that. So therefore, if you have a process which helps a startup grow from one level to the next, do validations on the ground, you will figure out that you will end up working with 3-4 types of mentors, each doing specific interventions with the overall objective to help the startup get onto the ground, quickly validate things, and then learn from that experience. Maybe you need a third set of mentors who mentor or mentors, whatever, who helps a startup assimilate the findings from the pilot or the prototype that gets done on the ground. So it also takes care of, the issue that Ravi that you talked about. That so therefore, in a process like this, a mentor is also clear that he or she is coming in for a specific interventions. So a lot of it can be productized. So for example, we have things like diagnostic panels, mentoring clinics, sprint design, MVP design, whatever. So a mentor comes in for a specific intervention. So I may come in for a diagnosis, second mentor may come in for a clinic, and the third mentor may come in for design and sort of doing the pitch based on the feedback from the ground. So I hope that answers part of the question that you mentioned, right?
Absolutely, it does. Thank you very much. I think I'd like to continue that theme with Anupam. If you could help us understand how you've got this very sophisticated model and framework of the in some sense the tech and the mental model, right? How do you pick, and how you almost imply in your comments that you're going to coach the mentor as well, right? To some extent, and maybe do a selection process that is vigorous and rigorous because you want to make sure you have the right mapping, right? I think this is key to success, right? And be able to, again, find the right person for the right phase and the right time, right?
You're so right, Ravi. Perhaps more right than you sense. And I'd like to set the cat amongst the pigeons here by saying that mentoring a project and curating its success is almost like creating a startup in itself. It is an artisanal business. Believe me, we're a fairly large setup, so we like to use standards and frameworks and processes. But I started my first venture in 1989. I've been a corporate citizen, I've been an entrepreneur, and now I head an facility which helps startups. It is an artisanal business. Each business is unique, and what they need as inputs is unique. Therefore, the moment we as an institution start suspecting that this project can be successful, then we need to look around, and we actually do look around for what type of medicine they need. And it's challenging, it's difficult, but we have to use all our contacts, and we have to use contacts that we do not possess, but visualize where can such a medicine be found that can give them the specific advice that they seek. Now, there are multiple levels that a lot of our fellow panelists mentioned, from compensation to standards to ensuring that the right kind of input is given. All of those have to be solved because, like I said, it is a bit like a startup. So there are different solutions which are found as projects step up, scale up, and more mentors are brought in, or the same mentor continues. So unique solutions have to be found to the engagement of the mentor and the project, plus the kind of advice that is needed. So therefore, I'm clearly alluding to a constancy of effort, which we call the coaching part. So there is a constant coaching element, which is non-subject matter expertise related. And then at various points, subject matter experts are brought in, and And they can be tactical or they can be strategic, short-term, long-term, paid, free. All of those intermediate conditions exist. But the coaching bit is the long-term relationship that as an institute we bring. And I'm sure everybody does it. We cannot surely be unique. So some wise kind of a person who's not giving too much advice, but sharing the journey, taking a step back and visualizing the perspective of where it can get, where it has got, what is the delta, what is needed to meet that delta, and then looking for those experts and bringing them in. And this is essentially the soul of our startup lifecycle management, SLCM as we call it. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. At some point, you feel the conviction that yes, probably a success can be made of this startup. You're not trying to play God. You're not trying to play a superior entity or a being. It's just a self-fulfilling prophecy that you help to create and unlock. If I sounded too vague and touchy-feely, my apologies, but this is an artisanal business. This is like a boutique. Each and every project is unique. Every chemistry is unique. The mindset of the heart of the entrepreneur is unique. And one size fit all just absolutely falls flat on its face. It enables us to tick boxes. That's why when people ask us how many mentors do you have on board, we say 6 or 7. I mean, that sounds like an embarrassingly small figure. And then we go on and say Vasudevaya Kutumbakam. So whatever you need, we will help get to you. But today we don't possess it. We'll make the right connections for you.
Got it. Thank you, Anupam. That's great. I think, I just wanted to urge the audience to pose some questions in the Q&A box that we have on the WebEx. And, I want to also kind of give heads up to all our panelists. I want each of you to kind of help me with an anecdote of how a mentor-mentee engagement worked well, right? Or if you wish, one that didn't work well and why, so we can have some learnings. It's almost like a mini case study. I'll come back to that maybe in this second half here. But I wanted to turn to Neelam. Neelam, in your previous role, I'm sure hundreds of startups tried to approach you to do POCs, get to your customer base, all of the other things, right?
Yes.
So how do you, as a mentor or somebody who's championing startups, how do you filter, how do you kind of field all those requests that come in, right, from potential mentee companies? And I'm saying maybe it's cold calls where a mentee directly talks to you, or it might be somebody like Anupam who's sending you a referral, right? Because he's met you on this panel and he has a perfect company that you can help. I just want to put you on the spot here, Neelam. How would you handle that? And what works, what doesn't?
So Ravi, this is a really good question, because what is happening is, as you know, I'm on various company boards, and all companies are either in manufacturing or in banking or in whatever you may look at. And then many startups come back to me and say, hey, I've got a product which the bank can use, or for manufacturing, supply chain management or something like that. Now, and this used to happen even earlier when I was as an executive running businesses. The truth is, nobody wants to experiment with startups because they feel I'm not going to be the guinea pig. I don't want to experiment. So if you go to an established company and say, here is a startup which has a good solution and I vouch for it, why don't you experiment with it? The first reaction is no. We've seen number of startups go away. After we have tried their solution, liked it, even used it, they wound up and gone, or they don't have the focus on after sales delivery. So we are struggling with them. There is a resistance on using startups overall. And that's a big resistance one has to overcome, because it's not about just doing the POC. It's about convincing the organization that you're there for long term, you'll take care of the issues, and hence use my product, and I'll be fair to you as I would be to my other customers. And and this is especially true for the technology startups, right? The food industry startups, which is the #1 in India. I am not talking about it because my experience with food industry is Very little, very little. I have not been mentoring or working with startups in the food industry. It's only on technology. Now, to get that acceptance that I need to do a POC, and I will show you how it will work, it's not a standalone activity. So in a large company, they're already running, either they're running SAP, they'll be running Salesforce.com, they'll be running some other established softwares and many homegrown solutions also, and Excel spreadsheets, not to say whether Windows and somebody's Windows and video was not working, but Windows is predominant operating system still, and Excel is still being used by many for managing businesses and projects. Now, in that complex environment, you want to test that solution. And no big company has a sandbox where you can go just plug in and show them it works. So getting them to even invest in creating their footprint and saying, okay, here it is, you plug it in my environment and show me. So I feel startups have a very big struggle. As a mentor, if you believe that the quality is good, they are able to deliver what they are saying and will be there for long term for the clients, you are happy to introduce them, right? And I think most of the mentors have that relationship and credibility with the buyers. But if you're not convinced, please don't do it, because then as a mentor, not only you fail the mentee because you haven't given him feedback, listen, your product is not working, it's not what this company can look at, and where is your after sales delivery engine, and so on and so forth. You haven't told him or her all this, and you've introduced in a hurry to get business. I think it doesn't work. So you lose credibility, and your mentee also doesn't get the right guidance. So once they're ready and they have the solution, absolutely you can experiment. But that is such a tough one. How do you sell? How do you get the first customer is a really difficult one, I would say, which every founder CEO has to crack. It can't be I hired a hotshot sales guy or gal and she's going to do it. That doesn't happen. You
Right.
as the promoter, founder, CEO are far more passionate about what you are bringing to the table than anyone can ever be. You've staked your life, your money, your career to that idea. And that itself brings credibility when you go and talk to customers. So nobody else can bring that credibility as much as you can.
Great. That's sage advice. I think this again resonates with your earlier thing of trust, right? Not only with the relationship, but with between the mentor and mentee, but also between the startup and the early customers, right? Which might be brokered through a mentor, right?
Ravi, for me, all my life, it's been people do business with people, right? So you build trust, relationships, and you do business over the years.
Right. And I think, see, one of the things we're seeing now is the rise of the corporate accelerator. And I think almost all large corporates seem to have some wing that is trying to engage with the startup ecosystem. And that may be the bridging model in some sense, right? Because there's no other easy way for a large giant to engage with a potentially nebulous startup, right?
Yeah, in the healthcare space, in one of the companies on whose board I am, in the healthcare space, they have more than 20 startups at any given time working with them on various things which they would like to look at and experiment and take it forward. And that is, healthcare is one area where experimentation, thanks to COVID, is at all-time high right now. And I think big or small, they're all looking for great ideas to how do we take care of illness and what do we bring as innovation to the market. Healthcare is really booming as of now.
Got it. And, I think thank you for that. I think, this might be a good segue to Mr. Srivastav to tell us a little bit about, what's the global model looking like, right? Across the globe, especially as you look at the impact of COVID in, let's say, the African continent. How has that impacted the startup ecosystem? And specifically, how have you kind of helped nurture mentorship in your global model? If you could help us understand that.
Thanks, Ravi. Ravi, let me just briefly tell you about our model. Our model is so very welcoming for anyone or everyone from around the world. Then we have members, and out of these members, they join us as a member of our Mission Entrepreneurship and Mission Innovation Club. These are the members out of which we select innovators, ideators. They become our social imagineers. They become our employable resources. They are the one out of which we pick and choose some of these people and develop them and groom them as a coach, as a mentor, and as a brand ambassador. And most of these members, rather 100% of these members are basically our investors in our within our cohort of our startups. Okay, so that's how our model works. Going back to the discussion, what has been going on since last 45 minutes to 1 hour on a mentor-mentee relationship, coach-coachee relationship, incubator-incubatee relationship. Let me tell you, sir, with humble submission to everyone out here, I would say that it has to be reverse mentoring. Then only we will have an outstanding and proven mentoring process in place. It has to be reverse mentoring. So what Neelam was talking about, that, you know, we had to give and understand and mentor ourselves as a mentor, as a senior, as a professional, as a founder, as a co-founder first, from the ideator, innovator, or the guy who is bringing in the idea, the guy who is an ideator, who is an innovator. Okay, here within Indian ecosystem, no offense meant to any one of us, sirs, and honorable lady co-chairperson, here we start behaving as if we ourselves are basically the gurus of the of startups, and we are the ones who know everything or anything possible around the earth in our country. So that is where we, in fact, we start killing the complete innovative mind of that particular startup which is coming to us. Okay, there are so many. Let me tell you, like say, there were times when I have come across students coming in from B and C grade B schools from all around the country. They would come up to us and they start approaching us saying that, sir, I have got this application in ABC space. Can we be in? Can you please consider our profile to be incubated through Indian Academy of Entrepreneurship? You know what has happened? Okay, so that student, he comes in, or that ideator, he comes in with an expectation that, okay, I'm going to be mentored around his idea, around his product, around his service. And when he comes to the institution or to an individual mentor, it happens other way around. And that's the reason the startup mind, the innovator, the ideator, he or she gets so much frustrated that he or she is not interested looking for any individual or institutional gurus or mentors. They are not interested. Let me tell you, sir. And that is where the story ends. I've personally been mentoring students, personally been mentoring business houses, personally been working with corporates wherein we have been setting up Atal Innovation Centers in corporates, okay, under Atal Innovation Mission within universities. And there again, we started facing the same problem. That is where our complete mentoring process goes for a toss. Let's understand the mind of this startup. Create your own institutional framework of mentors. Otherwise, it will not work. As and when required, I start knocking the door of XYZ person that, buddy, I have got one incubatee and he is the expert or she is trying to work in this particular space. So would you like to come and join me as a mentor? Sorry, it's not going to work, sir. The good news in this country is that all of us, starting from a street vendor up to XYZ level people, we are talking about startups, startup ecosystem, whatnot. And the bad news is that, sorry to say, we have not been able to understand this completely. We have not been able to nurture the ecosystem, startup ecosystem right to reach to the right audience, to bring in. We only talk about what? Indian youth. Okay, Indian youth. I completely agree with you, sir. We have got the best of the best talent from around the world in this country. However, what percentage of Indian youth are employable? And that is where our model is as people coming in from different walks of life, from different institutions, from different age brackets. We welcome them to be there with us at a startup, and we welcome them, we train them.
Got it.
Without creating any inhibition for them, impediment for them. Okay, we give them an open path. Okay, so
Understood.
that is how we work with our incubatees or coaches or mentees, whatever you call it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Srivastav. I think this segues into one of the audience questions here. Lily Mercy asks, she is a faculty member at a technical engineering stream and is interested in taking up the role of the startup coordinator at the institution. How should that coordinator best be prepared, right? What skills, knowledge, how do you kind of set up to provide connects that the startups expect with you as the mentor to the industry more broadly, right? If it's capital, if it's customers, that would be helpful. I think, Anupam, you put up your hand. Please take the question and help, Lily understand what might be a good framework and how to think about this in terms of structuring.
Well, Lily, I wanted to make an opening comment and then my wiser colleagues will definitely add more layers. But the first and foremost, you need to be a very, very good project manager. Now, nobody talks about this, but you said that you wanted to be the principal guiding the startup initiative in your institution. It's all about project management. Where are they? What's their baseline? What's their roadmap? Where do they intend to get? Are they moving there or not? Early stage startups tend to get lost in the detail. They miss the wood for focusing on one branch and they miss it completely. So therefore, that is an extremely important skill to be able to track, document, monitor, be evidence-based and fact-based. If you're doing those things, 80% of the battle is won, and then you would know what is needed when it is needed, and you'll be able to help bring it together. I think that's all I have to say.
I think thank you. And Mr. Bakshi, you added in the chat that you suggest a lean startup methodology be adopted. Do you want to expand a little bit on that and what the benefits are that you see there? I think many of us may be familiar, but for those that are not, you could talk about that.
No, just to sort of build on what Anupam mentioned. So yeah, I mean, a very fine understanding and implementation of a project management process, but I would just add, it needs to be project management with the objective of helping, and I'm assuming you're talking about student startups, if you're talking about a technology institute. So helping them do experiments, pilots, sprints, MVPs, etc. That's I think one of the advantages of being an incubation center or a entrepreneurship promotion center in a educational institution, that you have the time, ability, resources to do experiments, and that's what really de-risks a startup. So the same thing that you need to essentially be able to help these students understand what the lean startup process is. How do you do rapid prototyping rather than doing too much planning, research, etc. Design prototypes, get them implemented on the ground, try and acquire 5 customers, learn from it, and then sort of move to the next level. So I think there is now enough material available on Lean Startup. You can essentially go to Steve Blank's website or Paul Graham's blogs, read about it. And as an academician, I'm sure you'll be able to understand a lot of this stuff and help the startups implement some of these things as they do projects around startups. I'm assuming that a lot of these will be experiments, projects. They may not be significantly revenue generating startup, but essentially get them ready to launch something on the ground through these series of experiments, prototypes, sprints, etc. Yeah.
Got it.
Thank you.
Great. And I think, Bharat, you had something to add?
Yeah, thanks. So I wanted to bring that element of effectuation, because we brought effectuation into our programs long back. I'm very happy to say that it's been very successful. So if you see the large percentage of entrepreneurial academia all over the world, including incubators, are today practicing effectuation. So there are 5 principles of effectuation. So it's not only something which you teach the entrepreneurs to follow, but it's also something the institution can follow. So it is something which maybe take too much time to explain, but I just wanted to sound out that there's another method which is really very structured and pretty successful. Some of the very successful ones I can tell is Airbnb is one of the well-documented success stories out of effectuation. And back home, we have this Fresh ID, which the dosa batter, which you know very well, Mustafa. So PC Mustafa is the student of Dr. Saras Saraswati. And so Saras Saraswati is the one who coined the word effectuation. So it's another day, another time, maybe I can talk about it. Thanks.
Thank you. So, what I'd like to pull in another question from the audience. Vaibhav Srivastav, he's running a smartphone startup, and smartwatch comes smartphone. It's a IoT device, wearable of some kind, and he wants to know what's the best way to kind of look for mentorship opportunities. There are so many of y'all in the business of doing mentorship as part of your role, right? What guidance do you have for Vaibhav on how best to select a platform that he can mentor him, right? I think maybe it's a park that can help him. Maybe Sanjeev, your park could help him in the hardware side, but there may be other things, right? Go to market side as well. So I'll open this up to any of y'all who want to pick it up. Maybe Sanjeev, I'll start with you because this is a hardware startup.
Yeah, I think as I also earlier mentioned, for hardware startups, they just don't need, one mentor, like only a strategic mentor. They need, support on various things because the kind of project he's trying to do, again, would need a lot of, technical support. So it's not only one mentor, you need to have number of mentors, at various levels for technical guidance to you, for some strategic guidance to you. And it's a tough market, a lot of competition. You will really need a mentor, for go-to-market. So best thing is to look for a incubator and, I think that's where, multiple mentors can be connected to you for this. That's my advice.
Got it.
Ravi, this is Neelam.
Yes.
Vaibhav has put down that he is IIT KGP. And I know that most IITs also have incubators for some of their alumni. And they do have professors and research scholars giving guidance and as well as working with them on experimentation. So he could even look at IIT KGP to look.
Got it. And I think we have another question from somebody who's an individual who's, I think, brainstorming a plan, Ashish Chaudhary Gamini. And, he's asking, what is the best way to get mentored? And also, what guidance do you all have, since many of you are running incubators and accelerators, how to get admitted, right? To get selected. What are your expectations? So now your chance to do some mentoring right here live. For it.
Can I check this question, Ravi?
Yeah, please. Please.
Gayatri, in order to look for a mentor for your idea, what you have been working on, you need to prepare yourself in terms of on two fronts. One is the technical front, another one is the commercial front. Okay. Rest, what we talk about here, when I advise somebody to look for a mentor for a startup, I say that you as a mentee, and again, going back to referring the same point what I've been talking about, you have to decide what all are the technical competencies, what you are looking for in your mentor. What are the soft skill competencies, what you are looking for in your mentor. Okay. Commercials, financials, marketing, branding, go-to-market strategy. These are the things, all these things basically emanate from the ideator's mind. Mentor does not do anything, my dear friend. Does not do anything. Okay? No offense to any one of us. I myself is a mentor. I'm running an institution which is full of mentors and coaches. Okay? So that is something which you have to decide on your own based on your vision about a startup or its product or the services which you have designed and framed for yourself. And then scouting for a mentor, availabilities of mentors all around the world is not at all a problem. Okay. You can approach to individual mentors, you can approach to institutional mentors, and as rightly stated by most of us, that in today's time, most of the educational institutions, A grade, B grade, C grade educational institutions, even in India or all around the world, they have got their own incubation center. So you can approach any one of them and they would come back to you, seeing your expectations for your product or services or the startups, that where do you want to foresee this particular organization 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years down the line. And they would be, if at all you find them a fit into your startup, you please opt for that.
Got it. Okay, very good. Thank you. Yes. Hi, Anupam.
Yeah, thanks. I really want to push back to the good friends asking questions on mentors. I really want to push back and ask them a simple question. Why do you think you need mentors? Sometimes you need very specific things and you can buy that advice or you can buy that facilitation. You need PR, you need marketing, you need legal advice. Buy it. It's very, very low cost. Today, the world is filled with opportunities to learn and pick up things on yourself. And I find that unintended mentors teach you the most. Now I speak as an entrepreneur. I've done 4 of those startups. I never had the privilege of having a formal mentor or incubation support. And so you come into a lot of situations, have a lot of discussions and meetings, and each discussion teaches you and informs you. There will be extremely few situations where you're going to be genuinely stuck and where advice might generally help you. But हमारे यहाँ कहावत होती है ना कि शिष्य जो है गुरु को ढूंढता है, गुरु प्रकट होता है. So you have to have that hunger and that clear, overwhelming need that somebody can meet. Otherwise, most of the time, there's so much available today. You just have to Google, read, and find out. And don't consider yourself alone. You really don't need too much support. If it's money, if it's grant support you're seeking, be very clear. I am looking for an institution that can give me low cost money. Those institutions are called incubators. Lovely, wonderful. Be very clear, very specific.
Correct. Thank you, Anupam. And you know, Varad, I'll ask you this question that Supriya asked, Arwani, right? Sorry, Arwari, that asked, saying, you know, do you charge for mentorship? And you know, what is the model for incubators? Now, maybe I'll just take a crack at the high-level answer. I think each incubator, each accelerator has its own model. Some will charge, some will give you a grant and then take a little bit of equity. Some will do it for other reasons, for shorter periods of time. But you know, generally, the longer the program, there will be some equity stake and there will be some grant as well that's given, right, in combination with that. So it's very, very different for each model. You should look at each accelerator or incubator you're looking at and ask them frankly what their model is, and you should be comfortable with it. You should not be, you know, halfway into that relationship feel it is a waste of money or waste of equity, and you know it's not going to work, right? I think that's one. And Varad, you had something, and then I want to come back to Rohit as well. I have a question for Rohit on how he handles inbound requests as an investor / somebody who's giving capital, right?
Yeah. So coming back to what Anupam ji was saying, right? Even during my own entrepreneurship days, I never had a mentor, but I was taking advice from others. And I want to tell you one of the advice I got when I went to Israel. We were building a company in smart energy metering. And at the time, I remember very clearly, it was almost some 15 years ago. Today, this company is valued at $400 million. And so I still retain quite a sizable stock as well as I'm the executive director on board. So what I want to say is that when I went to Israel, I met this father of Silicon Valley, Dr. Eliezer Manor. And so I asked him, look, I'm building this product. He said, great. You know, only guys who make great products. So he said, tell me how you're going to market it. How are you going to sell it, right? And I'll tell you, that was the biggest lesson I had in my life. And that still sticks with me. And I think that's something, you know, like they said, when you meet that kind of luminaries, you know, you've been through 5 exits himself. And he was the very first ever, I would call it, medtech successful entrepreneur, building some of his startups that got exits, and then he went through the same journey many times. So he gave me a lot of lessons, right? So I'm just telling you that those are those, let's say, you don't need too much of intervention, but gives you some golden nuggets, so to say. Then you can expand on that, you can research on it, and then it's all self-help, right? And so in the effectuation also, there is something called the crazy quilt, the third principle. And we say, as an entrepreneur, you can self-select whom you want to be an investor, whom you want to be a co-founder, whom you want to be a mentor. So that's the power, the entrepreneur has. So that's basically what I wanted to summarize. And there was a question about this mentee mentors. I want to also mention today, there's so much grants. You just go stand out there, it's raining grants. So, why do you offer equity for anything, right? It's not required at all. Somebody is subsidizing, your equity. So there's no need to do that. And there is when, you go into a much challenging situation. So this is also another pointing point, right? When you are early stage, you are very open to receiving, mentorship or advice, but you go later, when you grow and become big, you don't want advice, right? You don't want to take advice. So that's basically what I wanted to summarize, that it's all the journey of the entrepreneur. And, at that point in time, the same entrepreneur who took the advice from me doesn't want my advice. So that's what I wanted to summarize. Thanks.
And I think that's a good segue to Rohit. He talked about being dispassionate, trying to keep that little bit of agnostic sense in the relationship too, right? Because it's this, nobody should feel offended if the advice is not taken. And definitely the mentee should not feel an obligation to mangle every piece of advice they get into a business plan, right? Because that can become a really crazy tangle, right? Also.
Yep.
So I think, Rohit, I wanted to come back to your thing. You as a person who's, let's say, helping companies that are in your portfolio, you're not just going to take a cold call from somebody who wants mentorship, right? It's a much more focused model. You're making picks and then you're helping those companies go forward, right?
Right.
So, just because sometimes people just approach VC firms for mentorship and it doesn't work that way, right? You're much better off approaching an accelerator or, an incubator or one of these other types of models, right? Than necessarily a venture capital investor or.
Correct. No, absolutely. So it's usually very structured. It's structured. Actually, it's the first and the foremost comes the companies you're working with who are already part of the portfolio, because all said and done, time is premium. And if you don't have time yourself for your own portfolio companies, how can you even take it outside? So that by default becomes the first part. But a lot of us, Ravi, and you know it better than most of us, a lot of us do love to invest time in upstream development of the hopper. We love to know what's going on. We love to hear what founders and want to be founders are thinking of. I think that whole ideation crucible is something which is very attractive to all of us. We all want to know, even if people are dreaming, what they're dreaming. So I think that draws us to some folks who reach out cold and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think about it? And you do end up having few conversations. And I think that's plain simple networking. And I think Anupam said it in a very nice way. He said sometimes they're overly complicated by being called, everything is called mentorship. Certain things can be bought, certain things are just pure plain networking. So I think it's very important to put 3 or 4 different labels on them. What is networking? What is mentorship? What is to be purchased as a service? You want to structure your ESOPs? You don't need a mentor to structure ESOPs. You can get enough people who can help you structure your ESOPs. So I think that's broadly how I look at it. But I'm so glad, Ravi, I just want to make a point. I'm so glad how in today's group, it's evolved very balanced. I was, when it started, I was almost thinking it's going to be rah-rah-rah all the way for mentorship and incubating. And it's gone in a very blended way where it's also turned to about what is not to be done. So very pleased with how you have guided all of us through this conversation.
No, great. I think, thank you for that. But I think, the credit goes to all of y'all. I think you'll have kind of put it out there candidly that mentorship is not something that easily is delivered. This is a tough, as one person put it, artisanal process. Others have had frameworks. It's not something where the matching happens easily, right? And I think it's certainly a long-term thing. And I think for finding that right match is very tough, right? So what I want to do is, I think in the last 20 minutes we have here, have each of you all kind of reflect maybe for a couple of minutes each.
Ravi, before you go there,
Please,
there
Neera.
is a question which I thought we should
please,
discuss.
did I miss it? Yes, please go ahead.
It's been put up by Amit Singh. He says, how do you identify the thrust area for incubation center? Because incubation centers have various focus areas. He said, how do you identify that?
Great. That's a great question. So, many of you all have accelerators and incubators, and you'll have chosen specific areas. If it's electronics, if it's fintech, whatever, ... right? And even stages. So it's not just vertical, but it's also which part of the journey you kind of pick up on, right? So can you all help us understand how you pick where you're at? Maybe Anupam, you can take it first.
Sorry, Anupam, please go.
Yeah.
No, please carry on. I'll come in later.
See,
And I'll ask all of you all to be brief and quick because we want to
Ravi,
make sure we get more questions in.
This is the most interesting part of an ideator or an innovator or a startup. Okay, it is not at all difficult for a creator, rather I would say. Okay, any area where you are not passionate, you know that you are going to touch human lives. Any area, through technology, through specific sector, are you going to touch human lives? Okay, and that's the area. If you start working towards touching the human lives through your technology-driven startup, through your sector-based startup, through XYZ, that is the sector you must get into and start innovating.
Yes. Good. Now that you mentioned sectors, let me ask one more question from the audience here. Saurabh Upadhyay asks, he's got an idea in the automotive space. Should he approach an automotive domain expert, or should he think of somebody who's an expert in the business model and the go-to-market, right? So does anybody have an objection to me saying he should probably get both, not just one, if we can? Ideally, somebody who's done everything. So yeah, go ahead, Bharat, if you had a.
Yeah, so this
Ravi, can I make a point to that?
Yeah, please. Go ahead, Rohit, and then I'll come to Bharat.
I'm glad this question got asked. I'm gonna be very provocative on this. I think Saurabh, you should absolutely know what you want. And this goes to the gist of today's conversation. So it's so good you asked this question because it kind of underpins everything that was discussed. You should be crystal clear what you want from your mentor. And that should be the basis on which you're going out and looking for the person. So don't generalize it, because that's going to be the most dangerous thing.
Yep, perfect. And Rohit, let me follow that up with, what if you have a really celeb person? Is that necessary in the mentor, right? Do you want to get somebody who's, so I find some founders are running after the unicorn founder, right, as their mentor. Is that even necessary? And will that person have the time to give you, even if they agreed for whatever reason? Or is it just putting some badges on your deck? What is the purpose there?
Remember, best cricketers never make best coaches.
Yeah, I agree.
Good one.
I wouldn't do that. All the more unless it's being done because you want that's your line to capital, which is a very different reason then.
Right.
And that might help, and there's nothing wrong in it. But if it's not your line for capital and it's just because you want to have access to somebody's mind, be rest assured you're not going to get that mind.
Yeah. But in Silicon Valley, Rohit, just to be kind of candid again, the marquee folks can have signaling effects, right? To your point of capital, right?
Yep.
Especially in a hot market where people are chasing startups.
Absolutely.
So, that's a very well-known formula in the Valley, at least, right?
Yep.
Go get a few marquee guys and gals, and you're off to the races, in some sense. So now let's, I think I've exhausted all the questions in the audience. There's, I think, one more. I think it's the last one we'll take is Vaibhav. Asks, I'm working on a startup, but I have another startup idea. What do I do? And the other one is even better, he thinks. So I think this is one of those insoluble, perplexing dilemmas of being an entrepreneur, especially a very early stage entrepreneur. How do you stick to your guns? How do you know you're headed in the right direction? and what signals should you look for, right? Just because all of y'all are working with so many startups. When do you know you got past a milestone that's worth, going down this and not forking off in a different direction?
Ravi, this is a great question actually, and I come across this. This is the inventor's dilemma. Which invention should he continue with? Which one he should discontinue? Especially if the second thought looks to be much better than the first one. And I always say, cut your losses. If you're not convinced about your idea, then no one will get convinced about it. Right. So be focused on what you think is the best idea you want to work on. Ironically, I see people stick to their first idea a lot more, even if it is, as the book Loon Shots would call, a loon shot. But definitely I feel that the CEO or the founder has to have the comfort in saying this one will be more successful. So go with your gut and stick to the one which you feel will be more successful.
Perfect. I think Anupam, you wanted to join in.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to humbly disagree with you, ma'am.
and say, finally, we have some debate.
and the only one who should be able to say idea one or idea two is the poor guy who's going to open the wallet and pay for it. So therefore, talk to customers more than anybody else, and let the market inform you when you've got your product market fit. We will never have conviction whether we are doing the right thing or not. On date, today, I start off on risky ventures in my organization, but in public, I'll always appear very confident and very assured that, of course, we're doing the right thing. To the board of directors, I'll be very forceful. But internally, that full 100% conviction, it's not the human condition. So let your customer, your paying customer, guide you to what you should be doing, what you should not be doing.
Totally. I think, so that's good guidance. I think you got both perspectives, Vaibhav. I think, I think it's a combination of both, right? If you're not convinced, I think Neelam's guidance is exactly right. If you're not convinced, how can you convince others? Okay. But at the same time, I'll tell you, if you start the second one and you get a third idea, now I'm starting to have doubts in you. Okay. So, you should be careful down that path, right? So now let's dive. We are forced obviously now to wrap up in the last 15 minutes. So, let me just have each of you all kind of, in your closing comments, could you also tell us a little bit of the characteristics of what makes a great mentor and what makes a great mentee from, any, past experience you've had? Just some tips to everybody. As both we have mentors in the audience, we have those that are setting up mentorship systems, and we have startups who will want to be mentored, right? Or are being mentored right now. So maybe I'll start with Mr. Srivastav in the same order we started the opening, and end with our co-chairs at the end, so they can wrap up.
Ravi, like I said, this seems to be such a beautiful question, and this is the foundation of the creation of our encyclopedia, which is what we are working on. The mentor and mentees, both sides had to have 4 words, starting A, agility, B, benevolence, C, courage, and D, discipline. That's the only thing which is expected out of both mentor or mentees. That's it. Rest everything is well taken care of, sir. I have been watching some of these questions coming in during, like, say, our interaction amongst all the panelists. Sir, let me tell you, sir, there are startups, there are incubatees, there are students, there are these people who have been into innovation and they're trying to create something. They say, boss, I have got money. Let me start something, but I want to be there with you and your team and your institution only. Okay. So compensation does not make any difference to us, sir. To anybody for that matter, most of the mentors. So agility, benevolence, courage, and discipline. That's
great. Thank you. Those are great attributes we should all aspire to have. I'll call on Bharat now for his closing comments. Bharat?
Yes. So we all talked about bringing external mentors and bringing experts, technical experts, etc. You have to also remember the value created by the cohorts. Let's say when you have entrepreneur rubbing shoulders with another entrepreneur. That's another element which I've seen always very, very successful in other accelerators like Y Combinator, for example. I have experience of going through that. So I can tell you one of the biggest value you get is from, the fellow entrepreneurs. And so that's another element which I wanted to bring it up and say that's something unparalleled, because they all are solving some problems that's really very big. And, when we get to meet with them during lunch or, let's say, dinners and so on, it's fascinating experience, so each one is doing something phenomenal. So that's another element we wanted to bring. And the other element, lastly, about how to create something which is structured, I'm seeing a lot of startups today, right? At least I've seen 4 to 5 in India itself, who are trying to bring this mentorship into a kind of a structure where, you can, like an app you can download and then get the advice from them for a certain subscription and all that, right? So we see a lot of people trying to, work on this, trying to solve this problem. It seems to be like a very difficult conundrum, it's like very difficult to solve problem, and I'm hoping that, some of them are going to crack it because there are many working on it. And so the last thing, which is as a summary, I would like to tell you is that there is so much, we can learn from each other, and we should continue this discussion, and we can build on this. Thanks so much, ASSOCHAM, for arranging this, and Ravi for moderating it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bharat. And I think that whole notion of a gig economy for entrepreneurs and mentors, I think we'll get to that hopefully at some point, where you can dial up a mentor at any time you need one. But I don't think we're there yet. But like you said, startups trying to build there. Anupam, closing comments, please. You've given us a lot to think about here. And
well, you said what is a good mentor, what is a good mentee, and ironically, for both of them, in my frame of reference, the most important criteria for both is exactly the same: be a very good listener. For startups first, startups will definitely hear, but it's not very often that you listen. Now, you are a leader, you're not a manager, you're a creator. You have the courage and the conviction to have a vision and then try to attempt to bring it into reality. Therefore, by definition, you, dear lady, dear man, are very pushy, aggressive, and clear thinking and able to take decisions. Therefore, it's very difficult for you to listen and take advice. So please be fact-based and discuss with your mentor why you think you might not be able to take up the advice that they're saying. Do not remain silent, hear and go away and then do what you were planning to do. That's terrible. That's the worst outcome. And for mentors, listen rather than be so eager to tell. Again, respect the fact that you're talking to a creator, a person who has the courage to leave everything else behind, take decisions and do something and make something. And therefore, the more you listen to them, the more you will be able to understand where they're getting stuck, tweak your responses to them, fine-tune your advice, and really add value to them.
Thank you, Anupam. I think that's sage advice again. And I think, I should add one anecdote from my own life, right? I've had a mentor in the past, and his model specifically was this listening model, which is, he says, the first meeting we have, you pitch to me everything. You list out all the questions you have, all the doubts you have, all the issues you have, all the problems you have. I'm not going to say anything. And then the next meeting we have, only I'll speak, you'll say nothing. And then the third meeting we'll have, we'll both talk and we'll debate, okay? But we need time in between those meetings to digest what we've each heard, right? Because oftentimes, you find these mentorship meetings, the person just pitched, then they're giving advice right away, and then the other person is rejecting right away, all in the same 1 hour session. And, he's saying, how can that work, right? He says, you tell me everything, give me some time to think and mull over this. I'll come back to you in a week and we'll meet again for coffee, right? And I like that model a lot. And I think, I would like to throw that out as a suggestion to any of these mentees and mentors out there. Adopt that. It really kind of makes a rich relationship. So, with that thought, Sanjeev, I'd like to have you give us your closing comments as well.
Yeah, so, in our experience, what my advice is that in case you're looking for a mentor, just don't grab the first opportunity you get. You feel you meet some person who is very successful and you think he can be a mentor. Meet couple of people. It's very important that you should have that kind of bonding with your mentors. So same goes with the mentor also. In case a mentor is not excited about the project or the startup he is going to mentor, then it will never work. They may decide. So it's not that like, that's the reason when we assign, we don't say that, okay, this is the first mentor meeting and this is assigned mentor. So there has to be a couple of meetings with different people. And then you decide that, okay, you are comfortable with so-and-so person, same as the mentor decides. And then that is the, I would say, very important thing for setting up a good relationship base. I think don't hurry up and say that, okay, you are my assigned mentor, take a couple of meetings with the same mentor, 2-3 meetings before commit. But once you commit, then listen to your mentor and, also do a lot of follow-up. You have to follow with the mentors because mentors are generally very busy. I've seen a lot of mentees, they feel that, okay, now he's my assigned mentor. It is his responsibility to call for meeting. That's not the case. You have to really keep on updating your mentor and ask for the meetings. That's when actually really the relationship starts. And that's my advice.
Thank you very much. And, that's very good advice as well. And before I go to our chairs, I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. Bakshi. He had to drop off this call due to his connection. But thank you, Sri Bakshi, for joining us today as well. And Neelam, before I come to you, I'll come to you the last, so you can give us your closing comments and the vote of thanks as well. I wanted to invite Rohit to give us a couple of minutes of his closing comments before we go to Neelam finally.
Sure, Ravi. Ravi, I think this has been such a fantastic session. There was so much I was picking out of it. So thank you so much for the way you conducted it, for everyone's contents, for the open ability to take a full 360-degree view. I think it's just been brilliant. I just have one comment. I don't think there's anything else to speak about. And this goes to the Indian ethos. Anyone asks us a route on the road, we always have an answer. We always have an answer, no matter whether we know, even whether it's in the city or not. I'm just very mindful, just if mentors particularly can keep that in mind, that the things have changed so dramatically and what the mentees need could be something very different and they don't have the answers always. I think goes to the point you were talking about being listening more than talking. I think if mentors are listening and not necessarily giving inputs and advices, but just being a reflective and a bouncing board, I think that's the biggest piece of perspective they can lend. So just that, nothing else.
Got it. Thank you, Rohit. And I love that metaphor of the lost driver navigating the city, trying to find that little nook, and talking to everybody along the way. I think that's a good, you want to get there faster, you want to get there more directly, right? And you want that coming back to, I think, the framework that many of you have suggested, much more specific. So Neelam, your privilege now to close us all out, and your prerogative as the co-chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. First, I must start by thanking you. You made the session pretty lively and interesting. I didn't even realize that we are on top of 2 hours. We've had a very good conversation all through. I must thank everyone for sharing their views and ideas because it has been really interesting. And as Rohit said, I learned a lot too. I believe everyone with one thought. When you have a mentor, as a mentee, be blunt, be open, share your concerns, share what you have doubts, and also be open to taking inputs. As mentors, I would say be blunt, give the answers. Don't give answers which you think the mentee wants to hear, but the actual answer. This is a tough relationship. It is based on truth. It is based on success and failure of each other. And sometimes it is bigger than life for individuals. So this is a very, very serious relationship. Choose your mentees wisely, we heard, and mentors wisely. If you can't add value to a mentee, be open in saying, it's in an area I can't add value to you. At the same time, a mentor should be honest enough to say he or she has the time and the commitment to the mentee, and you're interested in the success of the mentee. As mentors, we should be interested in the success of the mentee and have no other objectives in mind when I take this responsibility. Thank you, ASSOCHAM, for organizing this session, and I thank all the participants for listening in, and I hope you have a great success in your career. Thank you.
Thanks, Neelam.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.